opinion, Tybee hasn't managed growth very well. We still have a chance at bringing back our community. Tybee is definitely worth saving.
The following show and broadcast is a production of Better Savannah, an independent expenditure committee dedicated to better policy outcomes at the state and local level. The views, opinions, and statements made by the hosts and/or their guests do not necessarily reflect the views of Better Savannah.
John, what's going on, buddy?
Not much.
It's another day in paradise. The Braves are up 2-0. Is that right?
Oh, man, I'm recording it.
I know it's not. We're not watching it now. It's going on live right now. We'll watch it after the show as soon as it's over. But I just want to say Braves are up 2-0 in the first round, looking like it might be our year to win the pennant.
Yeah, I guess I won't watch the first couple innings.
Well, at least you won't have to watch the commercials. Right, that's always a good thing about DirecTV, Devo, TiVo, whatever.
For the rest of the broadcast.
Yes, please do not comment the Braves score during or highlights during this live broadcast. I told you it's hard to believe it's episode 61. We just spent the last 6 episodes, John, delving into the special election for House District 165. We came out on the other side of that, supporting a dynamic woman in Sabrina Kent. Who kind of passed our interview process with the strongest colors, so to speak. It was a very great interview series. I want to again thank all the candidates for agreeing to sit down. I thought there were productive discussions, disagreeing but not necessarily too disagreeable. I felt pretty good about that. And so with that, kind of in the rearview mirror now, we want to kind of dip into the second of our municipal series this year. As followers of the page already know, we're backing Matt Kitchens out on Tybee Island. Major issues with the short-term vacation rental regulation of that industry out there. And so we're taking a look tonight at the future of Port Wentworth with a forum for the District 1 candidates for the City Council of Port Wentworth. If you don't know, you will soon. Port Wentworth is one of the 10 fastest growing municipalities. It rawly doubled over the last census decade, John. By raw population, more than doubled in 10 years. And so there's a lot of caricatured, kind of Southern town atmosphere about Port Wentworth. But because of the demographic changes, we know that that's not going to last too much terribly longer. So we wanted to take a look tonight and as you go through this show and listen and view, the issues are similar but unique than our other kind of areas we're focused on in Savannah and on the islands, John. So I'll be fascinated how this is going to go. Do you got any thoughts before we get started?
No, I just want to say that I was bowled over by the census data that showed that Port Wentworth is just this explosion of investment and population. And as we all know, that means growth, and growth is the issue. I got to say, Chuck, I think managing growth in Port Wentworth has got to be the number one issue facing this new city council.
I can't remember which politician it was that said, regulation. I think it was Alan Greenspan. I think it was the Fed chair. He goes, regulation for regulation's sake is no vice. And that's how I feel about the growth in this area. Growth for growth's sake is no vice. It's not going to solve a lot of our issues. So with that in mind, let's bring in these candidates. Our first candidate is Alfonso Ribot. He is the former regional field director for the most recent census, also a longtime head of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, is well known throughout the Savannah area. Our other candidate is Gabby Nelson, who's a longtime employee of the Chatham County government. I'll have to ask which department, but I know that you're also on the Planning Commission board. Is that correct, Gabby?
That's correct.
John, let's start with our candidates here with kind of Better Savannah's overarching premise, and you kind of really always do that very well. So I'll let you pick which candidate you want to go to first and ask our kind of overarching premise question.
Well, Chuck, do you really think it applies?
I think it applies. No, I think 100% it applies. I mean, with the level of growth, the port activity, this is kind of the main issue out there. Go ahead.
All right. Gabrielle, you okay with Gabby? Chuck just popped off with that.
I prefer Gabrielle, but
So sorry.
if that's okay.
We're doing a check here, trying to get it right.
That's okay.
All right, guys. Thank you. Here's our fundamental baseline position, and I draw this from my own history. I've been here almost 30 years. In the 30 years that I've been here, the tourism volume in Savannah has gone from around 1 million, maybe 1.5 million tourists a year, to 7 or 8 million tourists a year. I'm not using the chamber's visitors numbers because that, includes people that come in from Effingham and Bryan and Liberty counties. So I'm using tourist numbers. So we go from 1 million to 7 million. The port 25, 30 years ago was, maybe doing 700,000 TEUs, cans, containers a year. Now they're at 4 million. Not to belabor this, but the Savannah College of Art and Design 30 years ago had 1,200 students. Today they have 11,000. All of this is growth. All of this is prosperity. All of this is business investment and positive. We still have the same essential poverty level in the city of Savannah today that we had 25 or 30 years ago. So we ask everyone, because we're looking for the answer, how did this happen and how do you fix it? Who wants to go first on that one? Alfonso, you want to take that? You're muted, Alfonso.
I got him.
Okay.
Sure. We have a lot of growth. If you're talking about the Port Wentworth region, the Savannah region is another monster. Okay. Whenever you develop a city or you manage the growth of a population, because you have to have some type of manageable growth. In our case, in Port Wentworth, we have a lot of growth. We have surpassed many of the expectations of many people. What has happened is that I believe, reading, because I just moved here about a year ago, I'm looking at all these developments that we have, and it's not just the development. It's the fact that with the development, there isn't a community benefit coming in, and there has to be a community benefit in any development or any strategy. Has to have a community benefit. Why? Because we have to make sure that how all these growing parts fit in a whole system. How do they fit in? How do they impact the neighbors down, like for example, the neighbors down in downtown Port Wentworth? How do they impact the suburbia, which is where I live, the north side, and that's where Gabrielle also lives? How does it impact? And what is the community benefits? Are we building new roads? Are we taking care of the stormwater? Are we taking care of the streets? Are we taking care of what is in for people, for the city, for the residents now, the current residents and the future residents? Do they have anything to improve the quality of life? And I do believe that that growth has to be used to bring that particular community benefit. When there's a measurable growth, okay, it's going to create some issues because it's unmeasured. It's you leave it up to chance. And when you have a carefully planned city government, I do believe that you kind of look at what could happen, the ifs, before you actually go ahead and you say, okay, this is what we're going to do, especially if you already have a plan in place, like Port Wentworth does.
Okay. We don't have hard times, by the way, on your comment or commenting.
Yeah, we're not going to hard press rules on the debate.
Yeah.
We want to have a healthy discussion.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. We weren't checking you at all, Alfonso. We're just trying to set some ground rules since it's our first forum in a while with multiple candidates. Gabrielle, how long have you lived in this area, and how do you take that frame of the question of 30 years of very prosperous growth in and around the Port Wentworth area, specifically with the ports and that logistics industry? Yet the Chatham County's poverty rate, which includes Port Wentworth, obviously, is still largely the same after the last 30 years. What are your thoughts on that question?
So I would agree 100% that Port Wentworth is a blooming city. There's still a whole lot left to do, though. Like Alfonso said, my main focuses are infrastructure. I currently serve on the Port Wentworth Planning and Zoning Commission, and one of the questions I ask nearly every meeting is, will these decisions, if we say yes to this, are our roads going to be able to survive? Are our citizens going to be able to get to work safely and expeditiously? And almost never I get an answer that I'm pleased with. I think it would be helpful for everyone who's running for political office of any sort to have some sort of municipal training, because it takes a lot to actually understand what it takes for a city to grow responsibly. It is a tremendous undertaking financially. It's just not something that I think Port Wentworth completely has a grasp on. And then to agree with Alfonso, I do agree. There needs to be more resources for the city. And this is something that I have been coaching for years out here. Where are our resources for children? I've yet to see it. We've heard a lot of empty, broken promises out here. So I'm excited to be a part of the new Port Wentworth. But yeah, growth is definitely, we're out here blooming and growing and blossoming, but there's still a whole lot more that needs to be done. Infrastructure is definitely the main force for that.
Great.
Go ahead, John. Do you have I got something if you don't.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, I just thought, there's a couple of policy issues I want to get into in a few minutes here, but Port Wentworth has an astounding problem in that the Port Wentworth city government has in excess of $30 million in their bank accounts. They are receiving money from the federal government as part of the ARPA funds during the Biden administration bill from early this year. A lot of the complaints I've heard is that the government seems to be sitting on their hands. Alfonso, you mentioned that Port Wentworth already seems to have a plan in action, but clearly there's some problems in the community with that plan. What should Port Wentworth be doing with both the funding it's sitting on and the funding it's going to get from the federal ARPA money?
When I mentioned the plan is in place, this was updated in August of this year, and it was sent to the CRC, the Coastal Regional Commission, and it was approved. And what the city wants to do, all of the different aspects of quality of life, commercial development, community benefit, parks, recreation, improvement in the stormwater, all that stuff is in there. Well, what happens is, you mentioned something really important. It looks like the council is sitting on a lot of stuff. You got to remember, they just hired a city manager about a year ago, right? Not only that, because of the stalemate in government a year and a half ago, where everything was stopped, they couldn't make decisions.
Mm.
Okay, so you didn't have quorum to be able to actually implement. You couldn't do that. They almost lost an Amazon development. They almost lost it to the point that the governor has to bring in or appoint a council for our district. Why? Because we didn't want to lose that. See, I read all that stuff, and when you hear all sorts of things, I just want to make sure that each one of those people that are in council are sworn in to do the most good for the most people. They have a constitutional mandate to serve everyone in the city, all of the residents of the city, not just a little bit of people here, a little bit of people there, or whoever shouts the loudest, or whoever is the nicest guy. And they do have policies, and they have to follow those policies to make sure that growth, it's in line with what the city plan has. It has to be in line, and people have to know how to do it. That's one of the things that I keep on saying. I have the skills to do that, to make things happen. And you mentioned it right, Chuck. It looks like they're sitting down on a lot of money. They also have other benefits, which is the impact fee, which is, I don't know, Gabrielle, they've been trying to sign it off, but there's a process. So I do believe that it's just, they need to have a sense of urgency. And that's what I want to bring in, sense of urgency.
Yeah, I definitely sense that lack of urgency. It seems like every 6 months, Port Wentworth has been trying to fill an unappointed, fill a seat on this council for the last couple of years. Gabrielle, we're going to get into impact fees in just a moment here, but I want to get your thoughts on the money that is due to come from the federal government and the money that's already kind of sitting on hand within the Port Wentworth government. What do you think the lack of urgency has been with putting that money into action for the residents, and what would you do differently?
The lack of urgency is just that. There's no one holding these leaders accountable. Absolutely no one. They're electing their friends, and that's just how it has been out here for quite some time. I didn't answer your question earlier when you asked me how long I had been living out here, and I've been living out here 13 years. I have built 2 homes here because I understood what small town values Port Wentworth had. If they were, if they were groomed correctly, and they're just not, it's just stagnant. Nothing. We have a robust planning commission where we receive countless requests for new homes each month, or new apartments and new dwellings. Last month we had over 1,900 new dwellings that they're wanting to bring to the city. What are we going to do with that? Where's the jobs for that? Where are the roads for that? The infrastructure? So to turn that around, I currently, in my current position as computer services manager for the Chatham County ICS department, which is the computer department, I manage our over $2 million budget. and I directly manage the ARPA funds of various departments purchasing all of their hardware. I think that Fort Wentworth, it may just be a lack of understanding how to move about making those purchases and seeing what funds are available to us. But everyone is correct. They're not doing anything with the money. We sit very well financially in Fort Wentworth. We're not a city that has had to lay anyone off or ask people to cut back on hours or overtime or anything like that. We've not had to do that yet throughout the entire pandemic. Yet it seems real political that now we're trying to drive impact fees, which I've been questioning almost 2 years sitting on the Planning and Zoning Commission, just so that we can get these kids some resources out here. I have small children, and there is absolutely nothing for them to do outside of my HOA funded playground. And that is unfortunately always down for repair. Either a slide is broken or a jungle gym or whatever, something is always down. So there's nothing on our end, District 1 or District 3, where we can go just a drive up the road to take our children to play. My husband and I often have to go into the old side of Fort Wentworth just to take them to a decent playground where they can actually play. So one of the things that they definitely need to do with those ARPA funds is put out some resources for these children. We don't have a computer lab. We don't have a library. We don't have any after-school resources. There's absolutely nothing for our kids. And I'm afraid to see where we're going to end up in the next 4 years.
Can I ask a baseline question? Every city, it depends on water. What is your water source for the city of Port Wentworth?
Go ahead, Gabrielle.
Well, we have, I'm not sure what our water source is. I know we have the big drums out here.
Yeah, Alfonso, is it City of Savannah contract or?
Yes, we do. We do have, we get water from the City of Savannah, and we also have a plant, waterworks plant also, that we have close to the old, where the all the mills and stuff like that is back there. We do have one, and it's actually brand new. I believe it's like maybe 3 years or something like that, and it's operating. It's operating really good. I have not gone into the details of how it is operating. That's something that I will look later. Chuck mentioned. I just want to ask a question real soon. Chuck, were you talking about the poverty level of Port Wentworth a little while ago?
Well, no, I was talking about the county. I mean, the county's poverty level is about 17 to 18%, and that's been the same for unchanged for 2-3 decades, basically. The 27% is the city of Savannah. I would venture to guess that Port Wentworth's poverty rate's probably gone down slightly, but not by a lot.
No, the city of Port Wentworth, according to some population, it's 1.49%. And the median, believe it or not, the average household income is $93,000.
Wow, that's very strong.
See, our city has money. Our residents have money, but what they need is this growth has not been planned in such a way that we have something for those people who are coming in. Remember, the census will not give you money for people who work in Port Wentworth. It gives you money for people who live in Port Wentworth. And that's what the tax base is usually done. Gabrielle, you can correct me if I'm wrong. That's what they look at. And I can tell you, the city has been trying. I got to give it to that. The mayor doesn't vote. You got to remember, he doesn't vote. unless he has to break a tie. But there has been a lot of knocking heads, should I say, and divisions in the council. And what seems good for one group doesn't look good for the other group. So it comes to stalemate. And sometimes they make rush decision because they just want to, break the stalemate. And sometimes, they just frustrated. And the mayor, I believe the mayor is frustrated. Sometimes, I'm sorry.
That's what your mayor's for, right? Is to break that 3-3 divide.
Actually, three, not now, right? Gabrielle is only, we're Gabrielle and myself. We're trying to get that the other person in there. Okay, one of us is going to be the person.
Okay, so you're short a person. I get it, but in the wiring diagram, you got 7 members. One is the mayor who votes to break a tie. Here's what I want to know. What you talk about, Alfonso, the divisions. How would you characterize, either policy-wise or philosophy-wise,
or political personality-wise, what are the divisions driving that city council? We have a lot of experience in Savannah with divisions on city council.
Yes. See, you have each one of those. The people, the councilmen have a district, and the needs of every district are different, but sometimes they kind of are common. And when you base your decisions on the opinion of the people or the needs of the people, and you say, okay, I'm not going to vote for this because the people in my district don't want that
billboard
building there.
Yeah,
they don't want that building there, but that building is going to generate millions of dollars, right? So the person is not looking to doing the most good for the most people. And sometimes you tend to listen to your friend over here, the property owner back there that has a loud voice or has a vested interest in the property or something, some position, and because they're your friends or them, you kind of don't want to rub them the wrong way. And that's when things start to get dicey, because you have policies. The city has policies. The city has rules. And if those decisions are based on the policies and the rules, you can't go wrong. Because you're going to be doing
I think governments make rules only to break them when they want to. And a lot of what you're describing, Alfonso, it calls what we like to call business as usual, that there's a lot of people that are dressing things up only to keep them going the same way. Gabrielle, as a longtime resident in District 1, where do you see the divisions on council? What is kind of the state of play on that council over the last many years of appointments and move outs and deaths and stuff that have changed that over? What are you seeing up there?
This city is completely divided. It is not just a race issue, which a lot of people like to put in the forefront. It's not just a race issue. I'm not saying that it's not inclusive of the race issue, but this is a geographical issue. We have people on the downtown side of town who don't even care to interact with us. We have an at-large person for downtown who does not show their face on our side of town at all. Our council person for at-large over here tries to interact with both, from what I can see. Now, me personally, what I've witnessed, and unfortunately, that's just part of politics, been swept up into, is trying to be forced to pick a side. And I don't believe in picking a side, because if you pick a side, you cannot, I repeat, you cannot be for all people. I have not, and I will not be picking a side or a team. So I have a lot of people upset with me right now both sides, so to speak, both teams. So some people are endorsing, making personal endorsements. I've not requested any personal endorsements, and I'm kind of being targeted because of that. I believe at the end of the day, my core values, which are compassion, ownership, right, doing what's right, and elevation of all people is what's going to take this city where it needs to go. We need to get on one page, be aligned, and be cohesive in order for this city to grow. It cannot grow the way that we're going right now. It just can't.
Yeah, that's an amazing statement. And given the growth you've experienced and the growth that's going to continue, yeah, you guys got to get it together. You gotta make great decisions. You got to make great decisions for the betterment of everyone. You know, governing is messy because, well, you know, you can go back to the Federalists and the Republicans, and it's just is different views of how to govern. So let's launch into something specific policy wise, Chuck.
Yeah, I wanna, and we'll start with you, Gabrielle. I wanna discuss the city of Port Wentworth's relationship with Georgia Ports Authority. The GPA, the Port of Savannah, is scheduled to double its capacity over the next 8 years, which is only 2 terms. You know, we'll ask about term limits later, but you know, during a potential 2 terms of you serving on this council, you could experience Port Wentworth's, you know, garden, you know, terminal or whatnot, double its capacity of containers. This is at a time when there are 9 to 20 ships sitting out on the Atlantic because they're behind to clear them out. One of our core central policy proposals for Savannah, Tybee, Chatham County, this whole region is a redefined relationship with the port, with the Georgia Ports Authority. And we believe that starts with securing permanent, reoccurring revenue that is split amongst the county and the municipalities that are directly and indirectly affected by the growth of that port. Principally, Garden City, Port Wentworth, Savannah, Tybee Island all come to mind in terms of, you know, we spend $200,000 every other year in county SPLOST dollars to replenish the beach at Tybee because there's a constant wake coming in from all of the container ship traffic, right? What is your vision, Gabrielle, of that redefined relationship? Does it include support for a container fee program that would bring recurring revenue to Port Wentworth?
Yes, Chuck. We definitely have to have that. That is going to be essential to our development out here. I was recently endorsed by Savannah Central Labor Council for my views on exactly what you're speaking on. At the end of the day, it all boils back down to the same thing: infrastructure, resources. If we do not get on top of this, poor planning is where we have fallen apart. You know, the city could be in such a better place. Like John was saying earlier about tourism, Port Wentworth is booming. We could be doing so much better though.
Yeah, you know, we just endorsed in the House District 165 race, we just endorsed Sabrina Green Kent. She is the payroll clerk for ILA 1414. And she had one of the strongest stances of any of the candidates on this particular issue. I've seen ILA's leadership sort of change on this issue over the last 10 years. 10 years ago, if you were a candidate and you walked into the ILA hall and said you wanted to put port container fees on there, you would get run out of the building. That's no longer really the case. Why do you think that the change in sentiment amongst interested parties like the longshoremen is more open to these type of policies now than say 5 or 10 years ago when you moved in there?
I would say because they know it's necessary for exponential growth. You can't keep growing if you don't put into it. We aren't going to get anything out. That's real simple. And I'm sorry about the feedback. I've cut my mic down and everything.
Chuck, you're muted.
I tried to play around with the audio settings to make it a little bit better, but I'll keep trying to mute each other when you guys are speaking, so that way it doesn't overlap too much. Alfonso, you are, a head of one of the local, or used to be at least the head of one of the local chambers of commerce, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce has had kind of a hard line stance against this type of policy, but you've been leading off tonight talking about community benefits, bringing up impact fees. Where do you envision the city of Port Wentworth's relationship with Georgia Ports Authority over the course of this, potential 2 terms where it could double its capacity? Where do you envision that?
That's am I muted? Okay. Yes, that is exactly. I do feel the same way. But the thing is that we have there's a right way to do the right thing. Okay. There's a right way to do the right thing, and there's a wrong way to do the right thing. And we have to be careful with that. We have to have partnerships. Throughout all my life, okay, since I was 19 years old, I've been able to partner with people who actually need each other and looking for the common benefits to each one of them parties. And I'm not talking about political parties in this case. People who have a need and people who have the resources. And why it's beneficial for the people who have the resources to partner with those who do not have, because they actually have a benefit that is called goodwill. And that goodwill is like an asset to any company. And the Georgia ports has to, if they want to be able to for the region to provide support for them for the increased capacity, they're going to have to invest in the community, in those communities like you mentioned, like Garden City, Port Wentworth, Savannah. They're going to have to start shedding out a certain amount. And one of the things that we're doing in Port Wentworth, and I say we because I'm considered part of the entire structure. I love doing this. It's because with that impact fee, anybody that wants to build anything in Port Wentworth is going to have to pay up. Okay, and 1 million square feet of storage will yield $500,000.
Where are you basing? Let's get to impact fees in a minute. We'll get to that issue in a minute, because that's we're big proponents of impact fees. Trust me, we agree with you on that issue. But specifically on Georgia Ports Authority, what is the best way? You said specifically there's a right way to do the right thing and a wrong way to do the right thing. What are those 2 ways with Georgia Ports Authority, to the best of your ability and knowledge?
To the best of my ability and knowledge, that anytime that they increase the capacity of the port, okay, they're going to have to start dredging a little bit more so more ships can come in. So we don't have those issues with, ships sinking in and causing a clog. Those funds come from the government, from the city government too, and the state. So when Chatham County said that they wanted to do a, I don't know how was it that Chairman Ellis stated, but it's whole one Savannah. If you have an issue here and you have an issue here, and we can get things done a little cheaper because we pool resources and they do it all at once, then we can do more, and it's gonna be cost effective. Well, Chatham County can go ahead with the backing of all of the municipalities. They have a better pool to talk to Georgia ports, because it's not going to be one city or that other city or that other city. It's going to be all the cities involved.
So as I understand it, basically your right way is to make sure we get as many people on the same page from various levels of government, county, city, state delegation leaders. I will tell you, and I just don't want you to take this the wrong way. It feels like the Oliver Twist method, right? Like let's gather up and get in a line and say, please, sir, more porridge. Can we please have $1, Georgia Ports Authority? All of us are here lined up together You know, is that really the best way, you know, to get it done? Gabrielle, do you have any other thoughts on what the disposition of the local city government should be with Georgia Ports Authority in terms of redefining that relationship?
Now I do, excuse me, I do agree with Alfonso. We definitely have to build these relationships because they are not currently in place. Um, so I would agree with him there. The problem is, as I see it, just looking at the politics of Port Wentworth over the last 13 years, we should be doing it. The port is in our backyard. We are Port Wentworth, but we have become a city known for sheer chaos. So I think once we get on the same page, everyone, the entire council, we'd be in a better position to go out and mend these relationships with other businesses, and especially the ports. Over the next 8 years, that's more than a reasonable request.
Can I
Go ahead,
chime in?
John. Go ahead, John.
Um, let me try to formulate this question.
Oh, help me out here, brother.
Okay. Port Wentworth seems to be looking at a dichotomy of growth. One big component is your residential growth. The other big component is your warehousing, industrial growth. What is your individual prescriptions for the right balance? Are you thinking more residential, a little less industrial, or are you looking at more industrial and a little less residential? I'm just curious as an outsider that lives in this wildly densely historic district where everything's already done. What's your prescription for your growth? How do you balance it? Who wants to take that question first? Gabrielle, go ahead.
Yeah, Alfonso mentioned earlier about the planning that was done for the master plan. I was a part of that from start to finish. And I believe that if more people had taken a part of it, we'd have a better understanding throughout the city, but definitely district-wide. But the preference would be citywide, that people would actually understand what what we're up against. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Sorry, Chuck did that.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep the audio quality as best as possible. You know, it's tough.
I got to poke you once in a while, buddy.
I hear you, man.
Right now, you guys are both trying to run for a spot for District 1. What is the mix right now in District 1 of industrial to residential? Gabrielle, finish up your thought on that.
We definitely have a uneven, in my opinion, going towards an uneven balance for the industrial versus residential. We have a whole lot of opportunities that come to the Planning and Zoning Commission monthly where they ask to be reasonable. The questions, like I mentioned earlier, generally what I ask, number one is, are our roads going to be able to sustain this? Number two, have you all contacted the school board to find out if we decide to go with you, are we going to be able to get more schools? It takes years to build another school. And 9 times out of 10, the answer to me is we haven't. And it makes it difficult to say yes to those. I cannot always say yes because they check every other box, because there is a grading mechanism that we are supposed to go by when we're planning and zoning for the city of Port Wentworth, but at this time, I would say it's uneven. We definitely need the jobs out here, but I believe that it could be more than just the warehouses. We aren't getting a dime for the warehouses right now. And again, I've been sitting on there 2 years asking where is this going, and only recently during elections has this come to be something that is being talked about.
Gotcha.
Alfonso, we'll give you a response here in just a second. I think this mirrors what Gabrielle, what you're just saying. It mirrors a lot of what we hear. That the Georgia Ports Authority supports 700,000 jobs, but 85% of them, 90% of them are not here. They're down 16 in Macon, or they're up near the Atlanta area, 285 corridor. Because those are within 4 or 5 hours of our port.
It's
right. It's a regional impact. And what I keep hearing from leaders, whether it's, Burnett Lanier in the west side Savannah area, right, your next door neighbor across the line, is that we're not seeing the community benefits return off of this growth. So let's talk a little bit about this mix of industrial and residential growth, Alfonso. And we want to talk about it in the context of impact fees. Impact fees are, I'll be honest with you, John, I don't think impact fees would even be on the table countywide without some of the advocacy you specifically have done, this organization, Better Savannah, has done over the last several years.
Yeah.
Nobody was talking about impact fees in Chatham County 7-8 years ago. Now it seems to be all the rage. For our viewers who don't know, John, give us a rough breakdown of what an impact fee is, why it matters for governing local cities.
Okay. Experts, sociologists, urban planners, the type of wonky people that work at the MPC, right? The experts. They'll tell you that growth does not pay for itself. That is, if you build 500 homes, the property tax base from those homes is enough to fund your M&O costs, your maintenance and operation ongoing costs. There is not enough money in that property tax base to fund your capital, your big ticket needs, your fire stations, your police departments, your police cars. So consequently, in the state of Georgia in 1990, the legislature wrote a law, passed it, that said municipalities and counties, excuse me, in the state can develop a impact fee ordinance and schedule and pass it by a majority, and then builders and developers and people moving here from someplace else, there's a one-time fee on if it's a residential project on the home that's paid once as part of the purchase price. And that amount of money can go into 3 or 4 buckets according to the code. One is public safety, one is roads, Gabrielle. Recreation, Gabrielle, is another huge one for parks and fields and green space. So Savannah, Chatham does not use impact fees, and yet this has been going on for 30 years. So governments are faced with either having to increase property taxes to provide these capital projects, eat the heart out of SPLOST collections to fund them, or reduce their services. So you can only stretch a rubber band so far, and it gives out. So we're at that point now. That's my short dissertation on why impact fees are reasonable and practical, and we don't have them, but we're working towards it. This council campaigned on it in 2019. You guys don't have it. I bet you wish you had it in the growth spirit in the last decade. So, given that, how do you both feel about?
And let's start with Alfonso. And I just want to remind our viewers that this, in Port Wentworth specifically, this is a two-facet issue. you guys have doubled in population over the last decade. And Gabrielle just brought up earlier that there's a proposal for 1,900 more single family units, on the horizon, and then there's right. And they don't have any parks or amenities. And then you've got this industrial kind of issue. And I don't want to ask you guys to comment on pending litigation, but there's a couple of major lawsuits floating around in the city of Port Wentworth from families who have invested and bought their homes and built their homes. And now all of a sudden their backyard is this monstrosity warehouse, that it's no longer making it a good quality of life. Where do you stand on the issue of impact fees, Alfonso? How would you go about making it, implementation wise go about, and how do you resist the pressure from the big business money developers who represent the Amazons and Wayfairs of the world, and also the local home builders who routinely donate to campaigns, as John and I very well know. What are your thoughts on this issue, Alfonso?
Well, a little while ago, you mentioned, you asked what was the mix. I think that the industrial development and the housing development, Gabrielle, is 2,700 more units, especially in Rice Hope, and across the street in Rice Creek, some apartments, because you have to also look at apartment complex and rentals. So what we need is commercial development. That's the other key part that's missing, and recreation, entertainment. Tomorrow we have a meeting with the YMCA. They're interested in bringing a YMCA to the city of Port Wentworth. Do you know that? Okay, so that's some of the things that I'm doing. There's a thing called I don't know if you heard the EDA challenge from the CRC. It's a coalition of different cities and municipalities that will sit down on the table and want to see what projects that impact water and sewer, impact economic development. What are some of the projects they're going to invest money in? I have asked the CRC project to include Port Wentworth in that table, because if the Port Wentworth is on that table, they can see what's coming down the pipeline, and they'll be in a better position to put some of the Port Wentworth projects on that table to be funded. Another thing is that we need entertainment for the people there. We got a lot of people. The average age group is 32 to 34 in my district, in our district. And the biggest complaint that they have is there's nowhere to go. We cannot take our kids to a park because sometimes it's broken, okay? Or their friends who don't live in the complex cannot come in. So the part of that plan, or the master plan for the city of Port Wentworth, is a sports complex. I believe it's in District 3, if I'm not wrong, District 3, on the Manhart location. We have land. That's another thing, Chuck, that we have. We have a lot of land that's city owned. So
you would use the impact fee revenue to fund these types of projects is kind of where you're going with this? Do I have that right?
Police, just like you mentioned, fire department, recreation, and of course roads. Do you know that if we can invest money in our local roads to connect everybody, so they don't have to go to 21, we can decrease the amount of people who actually go on the road on 21, that have the need to go across 21? We can do that.
Before I move to Gabrielle, how much, let me ask you some specifics. How much do you think is paying their fair share for developers who build a warehouse? You mentioned a $500,000 number before about warehouses. What about a development of 1,500 single family homes where you're going to have to deliver fire service to and police service to? How much of an impact fee should be assessed to single family type of development and industrial type of development? What are your thoughts on those two areas?
Me or Gabrielle?
You go ahead first, Alfonso, and then
Okay.
we'll shift
Yeah.
to her as well.
I really don't know. I can't tell you because I don't know. I'm still trying to find out what will be appropriate, because if one of the threats that developers make is, oh, well, we can go across to Effingham.
Yeah.
Or we could go across to another county and they'll love us.
See ya.
They can do that. They can, they can say.
Well, that's
"Ooh,
interesting. That's interesting you say
we
that,
have
because
to-
Effingham
we have to-
already does have
Yeah.
impact fees. If you were to build something across the line there in Effingham, you would have to pay an impact fee. So I'm not sure. I mean, surely Screven or Bullock. I mean, I'm sure the further out you get,
Right.
that's a fair argument.
Yeah.
But certainly in the regional context, I've been saying this for God knows how many shows we've been doing this now, John. When Bryan County and Effingham County, these are staunch conservative counties. Okay, these are counties that voted for Trump by 75% or more. Not saying that has any bearing on your race, but I always bring this up to say this is not a partisan issue, right? This is a planning issue. And this is a who do you report to issue. Do you care about the long range plan of the citizens, or do you only care about the bottom lines of several, 5, 6, or 7 developers? Gabrielle, what are your thoughts on impact fees in the context of new development for residents and in the industrial space? Where would you want to see that money go as well?
So personally, being out here for so long and seeing how things have changed over the last 13 years, not always for the better, I would propose that we make a split on those impact fees. So obviously I'm in favor of them. That's one of my biggest campaign points on the platform is, yes, we need impact fees immediately. But infrastructure, I would negotiate 50% towards that. And the other 50% I would split evenly between resources for children and healthcare, because there is absolutely nothing out here. Again, nothing for the children and nothing for the families. If you get sick, I have a 2-year-old and a 10-year-old. If one of them fall in the backyard on the little monkey bar, the little gym that we have out there, I'm in trouble, because we don't even have the roads at certain times of the evening to get me somewhere quickly to be able to take care of my children. So roads would be number one, infrastructure. And like I said, number 2 and 3, split evenly, 25% apiece would be resources for the children, and then healthcare. I want to back up just a little bit to
Go ahead.
Alfonso's correction. It may have been 2,700 total this year, but there were 1,900, a little over 1,900, because we counted them and I voiced them on our reporting for the meeting last month. So September was a little over 1,900. And yes, they do threaten us, the other warehouses who we seem like we may say no. They do threaten us and say, we're going to Scriven, or we can just go to Effingham. The reason that they end up here is because anything goes in Fort Wentworth.
Oh boy. Okay.
There's no policy driving our decisions out here. I make policy all day long. So that is something I understand and am able to implement.
Let me ask you a follow-up. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Gabrielle. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but let me just ask you a follow-up. Do you feel comfortable as a city leader telling these people to go kick rocks, basically, and say, look, we have to plan for the future of Port Wentworth. If that means you're not going to be a part of it, then that's what it means. Are you comfortable presenting that rebuttal to those developers who tell you, if you don't do it our way, we're going to go to the highway?
Well, I actually have. So, yes, I'm quite comfortable with doing that. I'm actually known for doing that on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm the one that asks the questions. I'm the kid in class who the meetings or study halls get extend it for 2 hours because I have all of those questions.
You sound like John McMasters.
Maybe so, but I don't make uninformed decisions. So, yeah, I'm not afraid.
Hey, I've got a quick question. I want to jump in with candidates. Does Port Wentworth have its own small economic development authority? No. Okay. So how do you guys interface with
CETA? Is it with CETA?
CETA. They use CETA. The city of Port Wentworth pairs up with CETA, and that's one of the things that I propose to that's part of my campaign. I would like to create one, just like we want to create a economic development for the downtown redevelopment, because I think it's needed. It's needed separate. Everything has to be separate, because what happens is that when you start mixing funds and ideas about how this should be, then you don't let the professionals actually do what they know how to do best. And that's when you get in trouble, because you don't let the people who you have hired to do the work. So my proposal is just that. And as far as Gabrielle and what you were asking was that, yes, I mean, it's going to be done the right way or not done at all. So
Alfonso, I want to ask you: has CETA brought? Sorry for the interruption. To your knowledge, do you have any Port Wentworth-based CETA economic development deals there?
I don't know. I really don't know. That's another thing that I'm trying to talk to Trip to see how we can get that going.
All right.
And notice one of the things that as you all know, I do have a lot of relationship with all of these government entities, because we've been having relationship and working relationship. So I'm sometimes at the liberty of picking up the phone and trying to find out what's up with this. I have tried, but I haven't been able to.
Gabrielle, you were shaking your head no. Is it really possible that over 10 years of 20 years of record growth, there are no CETA deals active in Port Wentworth right now? Is that true?
Not that I'm aware of.
Wow. I find that to be astounding. We talk about CETA a lot on our show. It's one of our institutions that we feel needs reform. One of the areas of reform is the way CETA is structured itself. Now, Alfonso, you just said that you think we need a new development authority for Port Wentworth, separate away from CETA. I'm interested, Gabrielle, if you agree with that position, or if you think that there needs to be reform proposed for CETA itself instead. I'm kind of either or on it, though. Go ahead, Gabrielle.
Well, I'm either or on that as well. I definitely think that having our own independent resources here would probably independent resources with informed candidates, obviously, people who know how to implement the requests that are necessary to ensure the city's growth. Then, yeah.
One more follow up on this issue. If one of the big things we're proponents of when it comes to economic development authorities is the ability for the local government with which that economic development authority represents, the ability for that local government to have an audit of the contracts that were proposed. We kind of like to tell the story that, company X will come into town. They promise 500 jobs at $15 an hour, right? Well, in exchange for that job creation at that wage, we say we're going to abate your property taxes for so many years, right? 5, 10, 20 years is kind of the maximum it usually is. And those taxes will go up. We never have the ability to find out how many jobs got created. When you ask Tripp, Alfonso, at CETA, Tripp is the Chief Executive Officer of the Savannah Economic Development Authority, ladies and gentlemen. If you ask Tripp, he will tell you, oh, I've got the numbers right here. Here they are. And you say, well, where did you get these numbers from? And they will tell you they are client self-projections. Okay? So, basically, parents tell your kids to go clean your room. They tell mom and dad, I clean the room. A couple hours later, parents walk in the room, it's not clean. I know as a mother, you could probably relate to that. Gabrielle, what are your thoughts on the ability to audit future development deals, especially if you're going to do like a downtown redevelopment district deal?
Definitely, audits are definitely necessary. I'm sorry, but that tickled me because we were definitely going through that over this 4-day weekend at home that the children had. So I apologize for the laughter.
That's funny. No, I get it.
Audits definitely necessary. Forensic audit definitely necessary. I don't see why these are not being implemented city or county-wide and department-wide already, but definitely necessary. I think if we were to take the sheets off or the covers off of a lot of entities, we have a whole lot more clean business.
Yeah, it's just not unreasonable in our view, and I think in your view, Gabrielle, that if you're going to forego receiving your property taxes in exchange for X number of jobs at salary, you've got skin in this game. You're agreeing to help this business under these terms, and to ask 12 months in or 24 months in for an independent verification that they're achieving their goal, meeting their goal. That's completely reasonable, yet we don't do that. So I certainly appreciate your answers and hope that you'll bear that in mind when dealing with CETA, because you have the ability in your contract with them, with your intergovernmental agreement, since they're a state authority, to add that requirement.
Or leave. You have the ability to leave the agreement anytime either. Just because it's a state chartered authority doesn't mean that we're required to participate, right?
But
with CETA.
Obviously, you want to participate and get
in some economic development, but I'm kind of prepping this for Alfonso's response, because Alfonso has kind of like a vision here of we need our own local development authority that is kind of separate and distinct from CETA. And I'll be honest with you, I've kind of had the JFK CIA break it into a million pieces feel with CETA for a while. Let every city have its own development authority. Let the Chatham County government representing the school board do the same. And if we're all trying to have a market-based, let's compete. I guess that's kind of, it's in opposition to, say, Chairman Ellis's One Chatham kind of initiative. But I'm just looking at these siloed institutions which keep the same board members rotating in and out on CETA, the same type of faces and the same type of names. Nothing seems to change overall. This is a big issue for the future development of Port Wentworth. Alfonso, I'm interested in any more of your thoughts on this issue before we move on.
Yes, we need to go through a process of separating lines of authority with CETA, because there might be, I really don't know if there is some laws or some regulations, some contract for X amount of years. But I do believe that if we get our own funding, we should determine whether to collaborate with this group or that other group, be part of a coalition, okay, or just let's do our own thing, hire someone to get it done, because we'll have the money to do it. But if we specifically earmark our funds, our resources to develop our city, and that, like you said, it might contrast with what Chairman Ellis was saying, but there's some issues where we could go together. It's like family. I mean, if I don't do everything with family because I want to do something on my own, right? So there's some situation in which we're going to need to have a coalition sort of with CETA and with other government entities. But what I'm saying is that we should take control of our own future, our own development, and put our own rules. That's what I feel we should be doing. Because after all, city council is not for the benefit of the region, but for the benefit of its citizens. And that's what I'm looking at. I will be responsible for District 1. And District 1 will be my priority. After that, then you move on to to the good of all the people. So
Sure.
that's what I believe. And again, this is a nonpartisan. I do not subscribe to political views, to ethnic views, racial views, whatever views. What I do is I want to look up for what can be done within the rules and what we're allowed to do to move the city of Port Wentworth through first district forward. And that I can do. I I have a lot of views about other things, but I'm more interested in District 1. District 1 is my priority, and I believe commercial development has to be a priority for District 1.
I just want to
So
put a footnote in here. A million years ago, I was a county commissioner in Chatham County, and I can hear what you're saying, Alfonso, about looking out for District 1. But from my experience, about 5% or less of the subjects discussed and votes taken were unique to my district, the 3rd district. Okay. 90% was that bigger thing, that whole city, if you will, or
right.
whole county issue. And, sometimes they align and sometimes they don't. But I just want to reiterate that most of your work and your leadership and your decision making is going to be on a citywide basis, even though you're a district representative.
That's correct.
I want to ask, John, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to ask, and I'll start with you, Gabrielle. One of the biggest, I think the biggest challenge for Port Wentworth is almost reputational, not in terms of just the very incompetent governance of city council, the antics, the arrests, there's been just tons of that. One of the most basic reputational risks I've found is the Port Wentworth Police Department. I have not mentioned this race one time to people without getting the feedback was, well, you gotta make sure you're going no more than 1 mile above the speed limit at Port Wentworth or they'll get you. I find this to be a Port Wentworth and Garden City reputational thing, these two police departments together. We've got some comments on the live stream talking about, racism is alive and well, looking at policing for profit as a huge issue in Port Wentworth. You've obviously lived here a lot longer than Alfonso, so I think you'll have a little bit more of an insight on this. What is the reputational risk of police relations with the community you're looking to serve? And what reforms do you think are needed over there?
So, upon moving here 13 years ago, my grandparents who raised me did not want me to move here. They did not. They wanted me to stay in Savannah and find a home in Georgetown where they were still doing some building because I just wanted to build my own home. But I decided against that and I came out here. And what I have witnessed is exactly what you're saying was in your lunch. The profiting that is going on out here just from ticketing is incredible. If we could make that amount of money from impact fees, we'd really be in healthy business. But that's Port Wentworth. And as you mentioned also, Port Wentworth and Garden City, they're aligned in that way. I think that what is important and what's been lacking over the years is just to reimagine, not to completely reform, to reimagine our law enforcement in this city, to include our police and our families in decisions that are made. The police in my neighborhood, I live in Rice Creek, and the police out here, we don't usually see them unless something is wrong. I grew up on Savannah South Side, and the police out there knew all the kids' names. And my grandparents' names, my neighbor across the street's name, we knew our officers because they built those relationships. There are no relationships being built out here. The children out here, especially the African American children, are fearful. And that's for lack of inclusion with the police department having people of color, and I mean all color. I am not being specific to African American, but the numbers, they're very, very low. And it's noticeable out here that we don't have equal representation for people that are supposed to serve and protect us. So when people are pulled over, that is the immediate reaction that it has to be racism. I'm not going to imply that that is 100% what the issue is. I would say that that has something to do with it. I believe if we involved or engrossed our police department with our families, we would be in a much better position. That's the first thing we need to do. Get on the same.
Do you think it's an issue of lack of diversity on the police force, a lack of training, lack of kind of a citizens-based feedback for reforms? You know, what is your feel for what do you think the kind of the pinpoints are there?
Definitely a lack of diversity and inclusion out here as far as the police forces goes. There that I've interacted with, there's only ever been one female police officer that I'm aware of. I could be completely wrong. I didn't ask for any statistics. I am going off of my interactions over the last 13 years, being in stores, being, watching other people get pulled over. I've only had one interaction with a female, and that was last year. So I'm not sure how new she is or how long she's been on the force, but I was excited to see her. And I think what a lot of people fail to realize is diversity and inclusion includes race and gender. And we need to have a positive mixture of both. What, John, you had a question?
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, actually, I probably should have reserved that. Chuck, at some point, and I don't know how our time's running, but
we're running out of it, but we've got a couple minutes left here.
Okay. I don't know if we want to let Alfonso answer that last question, but what I want to find out from both these fine candidates is one of our big tenets and beliefs at Better Savannah is the concept of term limits. I don't know if your mayor is term limited or if any of your aldermanic seats are, but I'd love to know if you agree that term limits is a worthy policy for good governance at Fort Wentworth. Alfonso?
There it is.
Okay. Yes. First of all, I just want to go back to real quick on the other question. I haven't had a bad experience with the police department. I know that they're including more diverse workforce. They have four or five Hispanics who are part of the force. I do believe that it has to be one of the major task or constitutional mandate of any government is security of the people. That's one of the most important one. And I was talking to my wife the other day, and as you go to Port Wentworth, you have to watch those speed limits because they will ticket you, they will grab you, they will ticket you, and they don't care. And I have seen whites, African Americans. I saw one Hispanic, and you get stopped. That's what their job is. So I feel secured in that sense. Now, going back to term limits, when we talk about term limits, I don't believe that a governor or city manager, unless a city elected official, should be longer, because what it does is creates complacency. I think that we should all go in, do our term, and maybe 2 terms, and then move on to something else. Why? Because in 8 years, you can do a lot of things or leave it ready for somebody else to come in. I do believe that seriously. That's why this thing about 12 18, 25 years, you perpetuate, the same thing, and you don't never have anything change because it doesn't benefit you, or because you already have certain people, lined up that will always do what you tell them to do, and you'll always be perpetuating your government. It also creates dependency on people. It creates dependency because they depend on you to solve the problems. And I do believe in personal responsibility. I think that everybody has a choice to decide whether they want to run for government or not run for government, save money or not save money, take care of their life, buy a home or not buy a home. Everyone has a choice. And
Alfonso, I love your answer on term limits there. I think that's a great answer on term limits. That's a big issue for our organization. We think term limits for local legislative seats on council and commission should be in place. It will breed new blood. But I want to push back on your answer on the police department. District 1, along with District 3, are majority minority districts kind of in this area there. And I'm not sure that the residents and certainly people who live in the county that pass through to do business, would necessarily agree that they haven't either experienced firsthand or seen firsthand, some negative interactions with the law enforcement community. I don't want to pin this all on the city of Port Wentworth. I know there are multiple law enforcement agencies, but I want to pin down and see, do you think reform funding from impact fees to help staff the department a little bit better, maybe make it more competitive? Are there a few things that you think need to be reformed or changed within the public safety apparatus of Fort Wentworth as a city?
yes, I do. I do believe that there's a lot of things that we can improve. Mainly, my point of view is community policing. Community policing should be a priority. Why? Because that's how you create relationships with the police. Police getting involved in sports and recreation. We actually need that. I remember Liga Atlética Policiaca. Can you say that, Chuck? You know what that is?
Police Athletic League. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And they were involved in sports. So actually, there's some kids who actually look at the officer as their coach, for example. Yeah, we can do that. But we have a lot of crime deterrent strategies in place, and it's getting a lot better. But yes, we do need to improve on the sensitivity issue. We do need to do that. But right now, that's a minor thing. See, you got to remember, the population of the city of Port Wentworth is not just black and white. We have Hispanics, and Hispanics is a different culture. We do not care about the color of the skin. We do not care about whether I like you or you don't like me. Things we don't care about politics at all.
Alfonso, I don't want to get into the business of generalizing a whole culture. I think if you were to visit other areas of the country, I'm not sure the things you're saying would necessarily be true. I can't really speak for that community there. I do know that these districts that you guys are running to represent, this district and District 3 specifically, are majority minority districts. And I know that I'm just reading this comment from friend of the show, member of the show, of our committee, Orlando Scott. Probably 90% of offenders in court in Port Wentworth are typically black. I just want to give you an opportunity, to say that this is an issue. City of Savannah put together one of the largest task force of the mayor of Savannah was about this issue. And I would actually argue, John, it's probably one of the most productive task force he's had as well in Savannah. Yeah. Probably. The housing task force report is a joke. We're going to have to get to that on another show soon here for these task force reports. But the racial justice task force and community policing, that produced a report of 12 to 15 major proposals, 90% of which were already implemented. So if it's that big of an issue in Savannah, I can't imagine it's not an issue in Port Wentworth. Gabrielle, I'm not asking you to speak for all Black people in Port Wentworth or all Black people anywhere, but is it true that this is more of an issue there than what your opponent may be admitting to in this dialogue? And what are your thoughts on reform within the police department still? And then I do want to ask you about the term limits thing as well.
Definitely, I definitely cannot speak for every African American in Port Wentworth, but I do believe that I would be speaking for the greater demographic for African Americans in Port Wentworth, and that is very much the case. I cannot say that Alfonso is 100% inaccurate because he may not have experienced any of these issues, but the constituents out here experience them daily. They have friends and family out here who do not come to gatherings, family gatherings, graduations, etc., because they are going to be stopped. It is inevitable. They set up roadblocks frequently in the Newport area. They don't do a whole lot of roadblocks in our area over here in Rice Creek, but they monitor frequently. They sit at Publix and they wait for residents to come out.
I wonder what the difference in home values between those two areas you mentioned are.
Definitely an extreme difference. Port Wentworth District 3 pretty much has, let's just talk about Newport. When I was about to purchase my home, my first home 13 years ago, I thought about going out there, and then I went to another side of the neighborhood, and I could see that one side definitely looked more up and coming than the other side. So I immediately decided that was not the area for me. I came on over to Rice Creek where the homes looked a little more even toned. There are two entrances. Definitely one side has larger homes. As of maybe a year and a half to 2 years ago, they began building homes that were mixed. So the first set of homes that I lived in were smaller, under 200,000 or really under $180,000 homes. And the side that I live in now is 225 and above. But they're mixing the value of those homes, so it looks a lot better. It's not cookie cutter. You can pick what you want if you're building. So they've done a good job incorporating the mixture to make sure that we don't just have one side of the neighborhood that thinks they're, I don't know, more better off financially than the others.
Well,
so they've done a good job.
Well, what about term limits, Gabrielle?
Term limits, I definitely, at the age I am, I see where that is definitely necessary. As a county employee for the last 13 years almost, I have watched as I've matriculated through Chatham County. And I have literally had days where I'm like, when are these people going to retire?
You already know who she's talking about too, John. I mean, we don't even have to name names. We already know.
No, exactly.
And it's not just, from a leadership standpoint, it's all over the place. The jobs within Chatham County, within Chatham County system, they just hold out, they stall out. And you're sitting there waiting on your promotion, dependent on someone else deciding they're ready to go home. So I definitely see that is something that is necessary. I would say a healthy term limit would be 8 to 12 years, especially if, not to change it, but if it was a younger candidate, you may have a better opportunity to get in and make more changes at a younger age. So
I think we're flexible on the number of years / terms. I think that's up for debate. if it's three terms, 12 years, or 2 terms, 8 years. I think that's the forest for the trees, so to speak. I think the policy as a whole, is what's really needed. I can think of, just off the top of my head, at the county and municipal level, I can think across 5 or 6 different municipalities of people who have been serving in office for over 2 decades. And I'm not talking about just 1 or 2. I'm talking about 7 to 10 legislative people on various councils and commissions that have a combined 100+ years of serving. And when you look at our first premise question of how can we have had all of this growth, all of this prosperity, and yet still have this poverty, and we have these same people, that are constantly in charge and with no accountability. So I just want to say, John, I mean, this has probably been one of my favorite forums we've ever done. You guys have both of you are very good candidates. You both bring something to the table. You're both running as minorities in a city that is historically, unfair to downright disrespectful to people who don't look like John and I in that city. And you guys' positions on these policy questions, it's refreshing to see 2 candidates have competing visions. We just got done interviewing 5 candidates where really one candidate had a vision and the rest seemingly didn't, or didn't have enough of a vision to really kind of captivate this audience. And I just felt just in the heat of the moment here, you guys are both really, really strong candidates that seem to be somewhat of a breakaway from the status quo, business as usual at Port Wentworth. And I think that's exciting for District 1 voters. It's exciting for the future of Port Wentworth. Alfonso, I'm going to give you a chance here to close out. I've got your website on a little scrolling thing here that I'm going to put up. And I'm just going to let you go ahead and just give a closing statement. Tell people how to get in contact with you outside the website, and just give us a few more words, okay?
Well, thank you, Chuck. And I really feel really good about this because I was able to practice some of my positions and hear what Gabrielle has and people. I'm going to be for everyone. I'm going to be a candidate for everyone. I will mainly try to tend to the district, but also part of a collective group of people who actually want the best for Port Wentworth. I do believe that my experience, my knowledge, my involvement in different communities, and by the way, Chuck, I've been in 40 of the 50 states, 7 different countries, and I've been working across all the cultures. And I happily can tell you that I believe that we're all humans. We all want prosperity. We all want well-being. We all want a good quality of life. And that's one of the things that I want to bring to the city of Port Wentworth and to all my constituents. And Gabrielle is if I get elected, you're going to be one of my constituents. So I have to actually look for what you have to offer so that you can help me do a better, not just a better Port Wentworth, but do a better, have a better District 1, which is where we live and we love. I learned to love it. And yesterday was my first, my birthday year in Port Wentworth. So I'm really happy to be doing this because I want to be able to help. And I want to be able to use useful to my community anywhere I go. You can go on my website is alfonsoribot.com. You can go to my website, elect Alfonso Ribot for City Council Port Wentworth, or you can call me. You could call me at 904-422-5019, or you can send me an email, info@alfonsoribot.com, and I will answer any question that you have. Thank you very much.
I will just say, just a free piece of advice. One of my favorite old school politicians in town, Regina Thomas, would always say, how you running? You ain't got a local phone number. You got to get rid of that Jacksonville number, man. For sure. Make sure people are calling a local number here. I appreciate you joining us. I thank you for your leadership with the Hispanic Chamber and look forward to what you'll do in the future. Gabrielle, I want to give the floor to you and change over our banner here to your information and give you an opportunity to close us out here. Let people know how else they can get in contact with you, and again, thank you so much for joining us. Go ahead.
Well, thank you all for having me. Thank you, Alfonso, for this spirited conversation this evening. But I just want to remind people, I'm a parent, I'm a mother, a wife, a normal citizen, just like everyone else out here. I came here with not a whole lot, and I have literally, again, built a second home out here. So Fort Wentworth definitely has a lot to offer. I understand that, and with the training that I've received over the years, professionally as well as through the city of Fort Wentworth, I intend to live out my mission here. And my mission is to bring compassionate and sensible decision making to Fort Wentworth. Okay? And that's going to allow our city to thrive both economically and enhance our overall community enjoyment. We've got to have resources out here for children. And I believe that Fort Wentworth needs Nelson. That is why my website and all of my campaign literature is cited the way it is, because that is what I believe. That is what many of our citizens out here believe. Other moms, other parents, other people working day to day who've lived out here and watched not much happen over the years. So I do believe that Fort Wentworth needs Nelson, and I have every intention on bringing a heart to City Hall. And I thank you all for having me.
Thank you.
It really was our pleasure. Go ahead.
Sorry, my email is ptwneedsnelson@gmail.com. I can be reached on all social platforms at PTW Needs Nelson. My website is PTW Needs Nelson. And I look forward to hearing from anyone that wants to speak outside of the district as well. I've been contacted by a few outside of the district because of what I have portrayed. And that is that I'm not here to be divisive. I'm here to build a bridge. I'm here to bring about cohesiveness in this city, which is something we've been lacking for far too long. So if they do not have access to Facebook and they're viewing this or listening to this on your podcast, they're more than welcome to reach me at 912-660-0694. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you both again. I really appreciate you guys sitting down with us. I think, the future of Port Wentworth is pretty bright if we can get 5 or 10 more people like yourselves to step up out there. You both brought a lot to this conversation. And I think we'll probably have a follow-up show with a few other candidates later this week to dip some more back in. But you guys gave us a really good lay of the land, and I wish you guys both, the best on the election trail. Please run hard and run safe, and keep at it through election day. Early voting is available now. Where do people early vote out there? Do you know, Gabrielle?
Yes, I actually have that on my Facebook page, but they can go to Hodgson Memorial Drive. Hold on, sorry, got it though. It's 5 voting locations.
Yeah, I'll say while she's finding that information. You got it?
I got it. Main office on Eisenhower is from 8 to 6, Monday through Friday. Mosquito control is from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. The Civic Center is from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. The library on the Island's library, is from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Southwest Library on the south side is 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. They also have Saturday voting this Saturday and next, as well as Sunday voting on the 24th. And that will only be from 12 to 5, the Sunday voting. So please bear that in mind. Make sure that you're registered. It's too late to register at this point, but just check. You can always call them down there at voter registration. They'll verify it so you don't waste a trip. So you make sure you're at the correct precinct.
Thanks. What were you going to say, John?
I just wanted to thank both these candidates for spending this much time, and I'd like to say it was quality time. The conditions and circumstances of the current Fort Wentworth, this is almost the story of the Phoenix rising, and both of you have excellent ideas, and Fort Wentworth is going to be better off after November 2nd. And I can honestly hope and see you two, no matter who wins, working with the other, because your heart's in the right spot. Yeah. And this is such an important time.
And clearly there's a lot you agree on. There were a few points of disagreement I saw. You guys never became very disagreeable about them, which I think is great. But I think that there's so much areas where you guys agree that you'll be able to work together on and maybe learn from each other in some of the areas where you may not necessarily see eye to eye. But I just want to reiterate what John says. I do think the future of Port Wentworth is bright. I do, however, know it's not just your district that's up. I think you'll need some, compatriots there on council that have some similar thought process. So we will do our best to endeavor to interview a few more candidates out there this week and try to get some more content out for the Port Wentworth voters. If you're viewing this live, we had a great audience, between 10 and 20 people viewing for the most part here. Please share this content. I know that there's a ton of Facebook pages that we're not connected to because we don't live in Port Wentworth. Please share, this is great content for the voters. And again, please make sure to get in contact with either of these candidates further if you'd like to learn. Again, I just want to say thank you guys. I'm gonna exit you guys out of the broadcast now and wish you guys the best of luck. Okay. Thanks so much, guys. John, I thought that was very refreshing.
Very hopeful.
Very hopeful compared to kind of how I feel often with the future of Savannah. It felt much more bright. I felt much more hopeful than I really did, on several, especially I think coming out of the House District 165 interviews, John, I was a little in the doldrums of how hard it was through several of those interviews to challenge these candidates on issues we care about and our members and the citizens care about, and to see them sidestepped and shuffled a little bit. But this race, I wanted to highlight it because it's just sort of classic labor versus chamber, but the chamber guy's not really as normally sold out as I would expect a chamber type candidate to be. I think his background speaks a lot to that. They're both minority candidates running to represent a district on a council that's known for white guys like you and I embarrassing themselves, embarrassing the city. I think that there's a lot that is offered by both. I was a little confused that some of the couple of places where there were differences, they were very glaring. I think the police reform issue was the most obvious glaring difference, I think, between the two candidates, John. I think one person, I think at the end of the day, Gabrielle Nelson is a person who's lived in that community for a long time, understands the issues a little bit more community focused, and has experienced some of the negative police interactions with being a black woman, a black mother. I mean, there's no other person in our society who has to deal with it as much as that. So I thought that there were some differences that were very highlighted and differentiated, but on a lot of the big issues. Port container fees.
Yep.
Good answers from both candidates.
Yep.
Impact fees on new development.
Yep.
Good answers from both of the candidates. Term limits.
Good answers.
Good answers from both candidates.
Yeah.
I give credit where it's due. I feel like off of that interview, You got one candidate who is a new guy in town, who's got a good vision, who comes from a background of governance and chamber and working for the federal government. I think there's something to be said about that being brought to the table. But then you've got Gabrielle Nelson, who's, 12, 13, 14-year resident.
Yeah.
Also has some of those same visionary ideas, but has a little bit more of the local experience. That's kind of what I gathered.
I think she's got a little bit of an edge for having lived, for that length of time there compared to her opponent. The thing that I want to point out, Chuck, is the authenticity of these two candidates was exceptionally high or strong.
Yes.
And when you reference back to the 165th, the two front runners in that race are just equivocating, recycled campaign rhetoric that it's like it's got no calories to it. It's just
somebody said to me the other day it was a has-been and a wannabe. It was kind of like old, recycled, and somebody who wants to recycle it. So I understand what you're saying there.
Yeah, I'm just saying that here are two individuals, one with long-term residency, one with short-term residency, both very believable, very authentic, committed to trying to make the most of their community. I mean, that's about as good as it gets in local politics, Chuck.
Yeah, I don't know if the same can be said for other candidates. I think we're going to find out. I think we're going to come back and do this again on Thursday for our regular show for episode.
I think they're all this great. I really do.
I hope they all are. I don't know if it's true or not, but we're sure going to find out. So for those of you who are keeping up with our show, we've got two races majorly undertaken already. We're trying to put Matt Kitchens out on the Tybee Island City Council, major proponent of short-term vacation rental regulation. That industry's running amok out there. We know firsthand in Savannah what that's done. We've got behind Sabrina Green Kent in the House District 165. She's, a labor union member, through and through, was the strongest on all these issues. And so we're just trying to strategically, trying to put out stuff that, we really think will change the dynamic and direction of our region. And Port Wentworth, clearly, John, just clearly is a huge part of that, So I just want to put up a ticker, encourage everybody. We're in the middle of an election season.
Yep.
You can go online, www.bettersavannah.org, click the donate membership button. Please get on there, donate $5, $10, $20. As much as Mark Zuckerberg is hated, and probably fairly so, every dollar you give can help us reach voters on these candidates' behalfs. And a lot of these candidates are coming to us from the heart. They're local. They don't have the Chamber of Commerce and the big good old boy machine working on their behalf. They've got their leather on their shoes and organizations like ours trying to help right the ship. Go ahead, John.
Well, maybe our viewers could look at it this way with our show with Terry Tolbert and our
oh God, yes, we got to mention that, please.
Okay, so we pointed out to Terry that SCAD owned a building, the Richard Arnold Building on Montgomery Street, since 2014. Took out permits, never did any real work, and did not pay any property taxes on it. Yet it wasn't being utilized educationally, which is a requirement for the tax exemption. So Terry, in his leadership, had an audit performed, confirmed what we had suggested, and so SCAD is going to have to pay 3 years of back taxes. Well, that's $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 that Better Savannah, John and Chuck, have restored to its rightful position in the county and city budgets. So, throw us a bone here with a $5, $10, or $20.
Please. I posted this in the Ardsley Park. I'm sure you saw the tags. A lot of people getting on there now. Like I tagged you, and I just said I want to just stop and congratulate you, John, on being such, because I mean, you pulled this policy out of the board manual. You knew, and I knew along that this building was sold in 2014.
Yeah,
you know,
it wasn't tough, Chuck. I mean,
I know it wasn't tough, but again, like that, you have the ability and the will, the political will, to step up and push these power. Right. Somebody said, I hope you get a commission off of that rip. And I mean, like, you know, I feel like a realtor or something, but it's like, you know, it's not how it works in local government. We're not doing this for money for ourselves. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do. So I want to give a shout out to Eric Curl.
Absolutely.
Former Savannah Morning News, longtime writer there. Left. He's a media guy now. I think he works for Cat during the daytime. But, you know, nobody really picked this up quicker than him. And I just want to point out, John, zero local media has covered this. Zero. Eric Curl is the closest thing to local media covering this. We had an inquiry on the Page's inbox today trying to get in touch with one of the candidates we're supporting. Yeah. And I literally just copied and pasted the link. I said, how about you cover this too? You know? So, you know, just reading from the column, this is on SavannahAgenda.com. You guys can access it pretty easily.
Yeah. Great page.
Pretty cheap on the code a little bit here, though. Let me fix that so it doesn't roll over. I just want to read this line. A field audit of the property and the board's vote came after progressive policy advocates, Better Savannah, that's us, you know, brought up the SCAD building and the board's 2-year policy during this interview. So I think this is episode 45. Okay. This is a while ago. We recorded this on, I don't know if you remember, we recorded this on Father's Day weekend. We recorded like 2 shows back to back in one day.
Okay.
And that was the day we recorded with Terry, and we published it a couple of weeks later. And I want to also just give a shout out to Terry Tolpert. He's the interim head of EOA, Economic Opportunity Authority. He's a lifelong Savannian, lifelong, you know, political powerhouse in this town. He's always been a guy focused on policy.
Always done the right thing. Always
does the right thing 99% of the time, has served on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's board of advisors. Super smart guy. And he said to us at the time, I didn't know anything about this issue, but I certainly will check into it. And how many times do we hear that from local government people and nothing happens?
Yeah.
So for Terry Tolbert, Chairman Tolbert, I know that you'll probably see this, and if not, I'll make sure it gets sent to you. I just want to, from the bottom of my heart, say thank you for doing what you said you would do.
Thank you, Terry.
And following through, and a shout out in advance to Chatham County Tax Commissioner Sonia Jackson. I'm going to open records request these bills this week and make sure they go out. But shout out to Sonia Jackson, who's going to make sure to follow through and send those bills out so that SCAD pays them before the end of the year.
Yeah, all right. So you have to pay a city bill too, right?
City, county, and school board, John.
Okay, all right.
So that's what, when somebody asked me, I think it is like 60, 70, 80 grand.
Yeah.
It's a lot of stuff. I mean, now to SCAD, that's nothing. It might as well be change found in the cushions of a couch.
You know the wackadoodle part of this, Chuck, is here's $1 billion art college fronting as a nonprofit that tried to even skate on this. They
on 75 G's with which they spend on pen caps every year, probably.
The arrogance of that mindset just slays me that they can't even get that right and be fair about it. So anyway.
Well, look, guys, back Mac if you're on Tybee. If you don't like Mac because you don't like, his cool surfer swag, try to elect Elaine out there instead. They do get 3 votes. So elect Elaine Magruder, super smart lady, would be a great compatriot with Mac out there. Let's all vote for Sabrina Green Kent in House District 165. And let's hopefully get to a place where we can get some good candidates endorsed in this Port Wentworth race. Because I feel like being directly next door to us in Savannah, being so high growth, and poverty not being as much of an issue there as it is here in town, John.
Did he say that correctly?
I don't think that's true. But also, I know it's not 28%, John. No way it's 28%.
It's not 17% of the county either.
It's got to be probably 9 or 10, I would imagine, is probably the real number, which is below the national average, which means that's not their issue. Their issue is growth, congestion, quality of life, pushing back against the warehousing industry. So,
yeah, what? You have to ask them. I wanted to ask them about affordable housing and how it's sitting.
There's two issues we forgot, and maybe we'll bring this up on Thursday. Affordable housing, which I'm not sure how much that fits into the paradigm of Port Wentworth right now. It's got to be asked. And also the tourism issue, because I know Julius is probably watching. There's this whole issue. Yeah, Alfonso's group, the Hispanic Chamber had bid on it at one point. I didn't have enough information about it specifically to want to educatedly ask these questions, but there were some other really good issues on the line with the future of Port Wentworth that I think we're going to have some more candidates later on in the week here to get another bite at the apple.
Well, we got the big ones. We got the big ones.
We got the best ones, hopefully, but guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Please like, share, subscribe, go to our Patreon if you want to donate and subscribe to us that way. There's tons of way. If you want access to more independent media, go to Julius Hall's ATR network. The Rabble, the Watchdogs, they bring good independent content and commentary onto these local issues. The local elected officials from Savannah, Candalee Keisha, she's got an access show on Mondays. She just had a great West Chatham kind of unincorporated area person on the other night, which was a good discussion going towards the West End. Yep. Alicia Miller Blakely is recording for us by us right now. That's on her Facebook page. Yep. Always some good local information, about City of Savannah. Yep. Jay Jones.
Jim Marikis in the Savannah.
Oh, absolutely. Jim Marikis in the Savannah. They gave us a tiny little shout out about the House District 165 candidates the other day. We appreciate that. Them if you've been here a long time from the Connect Savannah days when they, were, putting together a real publication for that news outlet. And now it's just a PR kind of another Savannah magazine type of thing, now. So they are giving you real hard local biting pieces as well as good commentary on some state and national issues.
Journalism and
great journalism.
They voted me best Savannian, so I'm not biased.
Also, too, John is not biased. He was voted best Savannian by their viewership. So, make sure to like and subscribe to them. They're at the Savannaian.org or .com, one or the other. I can't remember. I'll probably hear about that one later. But no worries.
Trainwreck's got a show at the Tybee Post Theater coming up.
Yes.
In a couple weeks. Go see the Trainwreck.
We need to find. Let's a piece of homework. Make sure we find that information so we can put it as an overlay here into the next show. We always appreciate them for letting us use their song for Sally on our intros and outros. And speaking of which, John, we're about to hit the 2-hour mark. So let's call that a great show. We'll be back in a couple of days to do another one of these. And in the meantime, hang tight and make sure to get out there and vote early at one of those 5 locations Gabrielle told us about. So I really appreciate your help, John, with this this forum tonight. And obviously, thank you again to Alfonso Ribot and Gabrielle D. Nelson for agreeing to sit down with us. And I'm going to go ahead and take us out, John. Have a great weekend, everybody.
See ya.
I appreciate our tourism community. I appreciate our hoteliers.
In my opinion, Tybee hasn't managed growth very well. We still have a chance at bringing back our community. Tybee is definitely worth saving.
Don't you think it's time for the city of Savannah to have an honest tourism management plan? Let SCAB start paying its fair share? And the hospitality industry needs to increase its wages? The impacts of new growth should not cost residents. All local elected officials on council and commission should have term limits. We're working hard to accomplish these policies. We need your help. Please contribute whatever you can, $5, $10, or $20, by going to bettersavannah.org. Donate. Thank you.
Tybee is definitely worth saving.